Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Kevin's BBQ Joints, and I'm excited to share my fireside chat with Sam Jones. Actually, it's not fireside, it's in his barn, and for the first half of this interview, if not three quarters, he was freezing cold, and I didn't know that, so we took a break in the middle. You don't notice when that break is, but and he put a heater on because he was so cold. So Sam, first off, thanks for bearing the cold for an interview with me. This one was great. I wanted to talk to him about his new restaurant, which is opening very soon in January in Raleigh, North Carolina. But it turned into an hour and a half long conversation about life, what he does as the fire chief of Ayden. We get the very beginning of this, we talk about a lot about that stuff, and it gets pretty heavy, but it's interesting. I think it's interesting because it shows that side of Sam Jones. It shows what he's all about and what he's working on emotionally when he comes to anything he does. Of course, we get to the new restaurant. We talk about what business has been like during the pandemic, and then we talk about the future when things open up and his ability to travel more and how much he traveled before and what family means to him and how little he's going to travel if possible. He will still be traveling to events, but he's going to pare that down. It's a great interview, and I can't thank Sam enough for taking the time. And as you'll know, we talk about time and how precious it is during this interview. So enjoy this. If you're in North Carolina, if you're in Ayden, go to Skylight Inn, Winterville, go to Sam Jones BBQ, and then soon Sam Jones BBQ in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the Kevin's BBQ Joints podcast and YouTube show is brought to you by Centex Smokers. They're available online, Instagram. That's the best way to get a hold of them, at Centex, at CENTEX_smokers. If you start typing in Centex and get close to the underscore, I'm pretty sure it'll pop up. It's Michael Johnson Jr. He's running the show there, making incredible pits. If you're in the market for an offset pit, give him a DM, get a price, get a quote. He's about 4 to 5 months right now, which is unheard of. There's a lot of great guys making a lot of great pits, but so is Michael at Centex Smokers. So give him a chance. I know he'll make you look good. That's Centex_smokers on Instagram. And the show is still brought to you by Treaty Oak Distilling. They're based out of Dripping Springs, Texas. Oh, Centex Smokers, Luling, Texas. So Treaty Oak, Dripping Springs, Texas companies. You can check out Treaty Oak Distilling at treatyoakdistilling.com. You could purchase a bunch of stuff online. If you could ship alcohol to your state, you could order alcohol to be shipped to your state, or you can visit them locally at their physical location, 26 acres in Dripping Springs, a barbecue joint on site called Alice's, where you can get all their different alcohols, plus have some barbecue. Great company, great people, Treaty Oak Distilling. And if you're enjoying these videos on YouTube, you should subscribe. That way you don't miss out. Hit the bell notification. I'm putting out 2 to 3 of these per week. Got a great backlog, some great stuff, just like the Sam Jones interview. I also have a website at kevinsbbqjoints.com. Got some cool stuff I'm working on, but I also have a cool list of all the knives that barbecue joints use, a cool list of all the sharpening and honing tools barbecue joints use, as well as a different list on all the cutting boards and blocks they use. I've bombarded 150 or so barbecue joints, asked them this information, and they provided it in their own words, which is really cool. But at the end, stay safe. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. How are you?
Doing well, man. We have been very fortunate through all this craziness that we've dealt with this year. I told somebody a couple of weeks ago that the folks that freaked out and predicted Y2K were just 20 years too early.
That's actually a good one. I was thinking about the feelings that we all had prior to Y2K and
Right.
how those were like those were not necessary because but then it happened this time. Like nothing happened. Y2K, we had a party, and my grandmother used to have a beach house, and we had a party with a lot of friends, and we went. My friend and I, we were obviously drinking. We at midnight we pulled the plug. We turned off the power to the whole house just to make people think that we had gone, that things had off, that 3 minutes later we turned it back on. And so.
I remember seeing people at gas stations pulling like tanks, and they were putting I mean, 100 gallons of fuel in something, thinking that the world was coming to an end.
Well, and I went to Target today, and we're back to kind of the March, April. I'm in Los Angeles, and people are buying up toilet paper again, and people are buying up paper towels and paper
And
plates.
I can't figure out the correlation between this virus, this respiratory, and how it connects to your rectum.
I never have.
I mean, the people not wiping their hind end before, or what? I mean, seriously.
And like, how much toilet paper do people does not have toilet paper back, like a little bit of a backlog?
I swear I do not understand it.
Yeah. I guess maybe there must be something. I think 30, 40 years from now, people will look back and see the psychology behind why people did these things, because it's really unique.
I feel like they need to take some of these people and put them in like a test lab somewhere.
Like send them
See
off to Mars
what's,
for a bit.
what's bouncing around in that noggin.
I don't know if do you think we need to know? I don't know if we want to know.
Probably not. It would probably scare us.
It would scare us. Yeah, it scares more than what really is out there. So are you sitting in a Yeti chair, or is that a sticker on the chair?
No, it's a Yeti chair.
How long have you had a relationship with Yeti?
Let's see, 26 years now.
Really? That long?
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So you were were you one of the first people that they connected with in the barbecue world?
No, I know Aaron Franklin and Chris Lilly, which both of those are great friends of mine. I know they were ahead of me.
Okay.
It's a funny story how all that came to pass, to be honest with you. And I don't know who's walking in behind here. That'd be Mr. Jimmy.
It makes it feel. I love when there's something else going on, because it just shows that this is a real.
Well, we decided amongst a pandemic and opening a new restaurant, why not go ahead and remodel downstairs of our house? And I have done that twice now, my first and last time. Next time I'll burn it down and start over.
Are you remodeling bathrooms too?
Oh man, it was basically like the tip game. It started off, we were going what won't hardwood, we were going hardwood and refinish what hardwood we had.
Okay.
And paint. And that parlayed into redoing the kitchen, redoing the master bathroom. We moved out. Let's see, we moved out the first or second week of July.
Oh wow!
It's supposed to be 2 months, and we ended up staying in two different places because my in-laws were staying at the river. So we moved into their house, but then my father-in-law had to have surgery.
Oh Lord!
So we were there for about 3 months. Moved out of there, moved in with my brother and sister-in-law, and here it is, December. I had to take the refrigerator from our offices and put in my garage so we had a fridge, because I ordered it in July and it still is not here yet.
Yeah, I've heard issues with that. Yes.
Oh man, we don't have dining room furniture. We have a home, but we're still homeless.
At least, and you have from what I gather and what we've talked about before, and when you were in Los Angeles, you have a pretty good sized property, right? So you're secluded.
Yeah. So the property my house sits on is about 2.5 acres, but yeah. I live next to my parents, and the farm that we live on is about maybe 40 acres.
Okay.
Like that.
So when you're showing beautiful photos or some video, that's your parents' property?
Some of it's theirs, some of it's mine.
Okay.
Some of it's places that the guy that tends all our farmland. Some of his property backs up to swamps, and that's where I do my duck hunting with some of my buddies. And
cool.
So, but it's all within 20 minutes of where I'm sitting right now.
How far away do you live from your restaurant?
From Skylight, I'm probably 6 miles. From Sam Jones, about 8 or 9 miles, 10 miles tops, something like that. Greenville, North Carolina is the biggest city east of Raleigh.
Okay, east. Okay.
That's right. And so Greenville, Winterville, Ayden, all the city limits touch each other.
Do they consider that your restaurant in Greenville? Because I know when I look at it online, it's Winterville.
It's weird, but so Fire Tower Road, which is a 4-lane with a turn lane, that turn lane is the city limits break. My side of the road is Winterville. Across the street is Greenville.
Okay.
So literally, there can be a wreck in front of the restaurant, depending on what side of the road it's on. Depends on if it's Winterville Fire and Rescue or Greenville Fire and Rescue.
And which one do you work for?
Well, I don't work for anybody.
No, but you do not volunteer. Is it called volunteer?
I'm the fire chief in Ayden.
Okay.
Our EMS is paid 24/7, and we do a call stipend. And I don't like to call it pay because nobody does it for the money, but literally, it's $9 per call, which is nothing. And just this year, I was able to budget a part-time position. It's so funny because when people come to visit me, and most people know that I've been in the fire service for over 20 years, and when you think of a volunteer fire department, you think of a bunch of rednecks. It's the stereotype that gets laid. It is a
stereotype, yeah.
And a good friend of mine, Tank Jackson from Charleston, Holy City Hogs. Me and him did some work together a couple of weeks ago doing some filming, and he stayed in Ayden. a night, and I gave him 50-cent tour when I carried him to our main station because we operate 2 fire stations. He was like, "Dude, I was not expecting this." Because it's a station full of basically brand new vehicles.
Wow.
We operate 4 engines, a rescue unit, 2 tankers, a brush truck, and we respond to every cardiac and respiratory arrest that happens in our area.
Have you noticed people are calling less for that because of COVID? Are people concerned about, because I just took my mom to the hospital 3 weeks ago, and in the back of my mind, I was a little concerned, but it was an issue I had to take her to.
Well, when COVID first came on, and we're 2 separate divisions, fire and EMS, although we work together on most every incident. And so when COVID first happened, we saw a sharp decline in the EMS calls because, unfortunately, a lot of people used the EMS truck as a taxi. I would dare say over 85% of the time when you see an ambulance on the road, it's for a non-emergency call.
That's terrible.
Something that you and I would go to the doctor for. Somebody calls an ambulance, which is depriving somebody that's having a true emergency from the closest ambulance being to them. And there was a decline right to start with, and Ayden is the busiest ambulance in Pitt County outside of the city of Greenville. And they typically run somewhere between 2,500, 3,000 calls a year.
Wow. Because
our fire department covers 48 square miles. EMS covers an even greater distance. But for instance, just 2 Saturdays ago, or Saturday, mate, two weeks ago, we coded a 10-year-old boy a mile from my house. And it was one of those deals where, literally, it's a brand new subdivision. When the call came out, and I'm not saying that we judge people or but based on statistics, when a call comes out for a respiratory cardiac arrest and it's a 78-year-old male or a 74-year-old female, you're thinking, okay, they've got some health problems, they're up in age.
Yeah.
When the call comes out for a 28-year-old male, most likely that's drug related.
Yeah, that makes sense.
9 times out of 10. And you expect those calls. But I literally, because we get a voice page and then we get a text via an app called Active 911. And when it come in about 7 o'clock that Saturday morning, my pager went off and I thought it said a 10-year-old male not breathing. And I looked at my phone and was like, whoa. Did I misunderstand that? And it was literally a mile from my house. And when I get there, we coded a 10-year-old boy for 35 minutes before they called it. And he has pre-existing conditions. But nonetheless, when it's a child, we got done, I always speak to the family of any age. Walked outside and me and my crew just bawled. And I looked at them with tears coming out of my eyes, and they had tears coming out of theirs. And I said, boys, they shouldn't have to make caskets that short.
No. Oh,
and
how do you
reality?
How do you deal with that now? I guess talking about it to people. And
man, I tell every new recruit that I give an application to join our service, I say, just because we're volunteer does not mean we're not professionals. Mm-hmm. Our community and the people we service deserve a professional service, and that's what we render. I said, if you're not willing to go get the training that we offer and other departments offered, and we give people 2 years to complete all the training necessary to be a professional.
Okay.
I said, but if you're not willing to do that, you need to go join a Lions Club or the Rotary Club.
Yeah, seriously.
Or a damn country club for that matter. Somewhere that things don't matter if you show up or not. And when you do show up, it doesn't matter what your skill set is. I said, but here, I'm getting ready to outfit you with a uniform and all the equipment that makes you look just like a man that knows what he's doing.
True.
And so I need you to know what you're doing when they pull the parking brake on that engine.
It's literally life and death. It is. It's not something. It's not a joke.
And unfortunately, when you serve in a small community like we do, and this is the next step I take with a new recruit is, it's a matter of time before somebody or somebody's mother or sister or grandparent, either in a fire or a car accident. It's a matter of time. And if you train properly, you're going to have to deal with your emotions at some point. But your muscle memory will allow you to function in the moment. Mm-hmm. We got a job to do. Nobody else is coming. It's our job.
and utilize that stress properly to focus and do your job.
That's
And
right.
then,
I mean, when the task is over, you can go handle your emotions.
mhm.
But in the moment, you got to function.
Wow. And that's for all across the board for people in the healthcare industry, and especially nowadays too. It just, you have to, that type of focus and that type of pulling back emotions, but then you see the release from these nurses or these doctors later on, or you see them on TV dealing with, they were dealing with stuff before that was more difficult, but now with COVID, it's a whole new world.
I mean,
I
for
commend
instance,
them.
Kevin, I shared this in my book, but in 2005, the young lady that I thought I'd marry, she and I were in a car accident. It threw us both out of the vehicle because we weren't restrained. That was in my service area. That was in the city limits of Ayden.
Oh, wow.
And so the very people I worked with and volunteered with came to my assistance. And, think of, I don't even know how to put it into perspective, but those guys that answer so many calls, just like I do, all of a sudden it's one of your own.
Mm-hmm.
And a man that had been in the fire department since 1972, that was the assistant chief at the time, could not put the fire truck in pump gear to
Really?
land the helicopter that day. He was so emotional
Oh,
based on the fact that it was me and this young lady that he had seen in the fire station so many times. And I'm not saying that was a bad thing, because your emotions can overcome you.
mm-hmm.
But I tell that story to, once the guys are actually guys or females are voted on, then I tell that story of, hey, there was a time when I was a person in need, and it was my very own department that had to service that call. And I'll never forget, that was on a Sunday. We buried her on a Wednesday.
Huh.
And when we came out of church, it was the fire department that lined the sidewalk from the steps of that church to the back of the hearse. The same guys that went to that call, the same guys that I had worked with for years.
Oh.
And so there's in the volunteer community, especially in small communities, when it's somebody it hits home. And man, I could sit here and tell you stories of pulling children out of homes that I knew their parents. And I remember walking into a funeral home one night, and I typically wouldn't have, but on this particular call, it was my business partner, Michael Letchworth, at the time. His parents lived at the country club, which is a mile from me.
Okay.
That way. And every time I was at their house, I'd see these children. If we were having a party or something, they'd come over. They were their neighbors. And we had a call come in one morning. It was November 21st of 2004. I'll never forget it. And at the end of that call, his neighbors had lost the father of the children had lost his daddy and two children in a fire.
Oh my gosh.
A 3-year-old, 7-year-old, and his father.
Oh,
and
I don't even know how to process that. That would.
I didn't mean to go all Johnny Raincloud.
No. You know what?
Because there's some calls that we've gone on, especially since we've been doing this response of going with EMS for the last 7 years, that we've seen stories. Just this year, there was a guy that used to be on our department, and he's back in now. He's a younger guy, but his granddaddy was sitting on a stack of pallets at the farm and just, bam, fell over. And it was a witnessed arrest. They immediately started CPR, called 911. We got there and we ran the code. And I say we, it was 2 ambulances, the fire department, but the code was ran on this man for over 35 minutes. Nonstop CPR, pushing drugs. This man got shot 16 times. 9 of those was in tandem with 2 monitors shocking him.
Okay.
He was 73 years old. 24 hours later, he woke up in the hospital. A month after that, I saw him driving a combine down the highway.
Wow, that's amazing. And,
So
how does he survive that?
But that's the highlights where
That's why you do that.
to a scene, and the whole time we were working, I was thinking, man, I'm gonna have to hug these people's neck and say, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, something happens, a turn takes place. And then there's other calls that that morning those children died. The guy that was the secretary treasurer of the fire department called the local preacher of the Christian church, and the sun was just coming up. And at that time, there was probably 3 departments on scene. So you're talking about probably 50 plus personnel. And he wanted to have a prayer with us. And I'm standing there in my gear, as most others were, engine operators, the chiefs. I was captain at the time, and when he started praying, the sun was coming up, and a man with a shotgun couldn't have kept the water coming out of my eyes. Because all of us, I mean, literally, we had hope for a different outcome.
Yeah.
And at that point, the ones that had went to the hospital that we had pulled out, because I was on the initial attack with 2 other guys, and we had pulled out the first 2 victims ourselves, thinking they were going to make it. And
Well, they had already gone off to the hospital.
That's right. But as word comes back, and then I knew who the parents were, and I knew all the connections.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a bad deal. But, you know, that's one side of my life that I feel like if there's a volunteer department in a community, it's because they're rendering a service the community cannot afford to pay for.
But also, too, this is a portion of your life that a lot of people, if they haven't read the book, I know that we kind of touched on it when we first talked almost 3 years ago, but that's a big portion of your life. And it also shows what type of person you are, because, you know, the emotion has to be, you have to do this because you care about people. You want to help people. You want to save people. You want to protect people. So it shows a side of you that people might not know. So this might've been like a little dark at times, but it's also life, and it's an interesting facet of your character.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of calls that go on that's comical, you know, where you're like, Jesus Christ, y'all called the fire department for this, you know. And then there's those calls like I just mentioned that bring you down to nothing, and then you got your false alarms, and I mean, everything's rolled up in one big ball. But you have
You're on
to be
call right
prepared,
now.
But you have to do what?
Excuse me. And you said, do what? I love that. That's like such a sort of thing. When I lived in Texas for a year, people kept saying, do what? And I'm like, what is do what? What do you say?
My great friend, Billy Durney.
Yeah, I love him.
Brooklyn native. The first time he heard me say that, it was like a dog that had been whistled at. He's like,
I did the same thing when I was in Austin. I thought, what do you, I don't understand.
Now, when we haven't been together in a year because of COVID, me and him and Pat stay connected via text, but he even heard me one time say, do what now? And so he'll do it in his Brooklyn accent, which is even better than my East North Carolina accent, where he goes, do what now?
so is do what short for do what now? You think? Is that where it came from?
Especially like come again. Yeah. You know, like, how about lay that on me one more time?
Yeah. But in us Yankees or in California, which is weird because I'm Southern California, so I should be maybe the South, but it's completely different. We never say do what.
Hey, have you ever seen the movie Days of Thunder?
Mm-hmm.
Where they bring Tom Cruise out, and you've got, I can't even think of his name now. He was Cousin Eddie in Christmas Vacation. You got Robert Duvall, who's the crew chief, and he goes, where's this guy from? And he goes, California. And he goes, is he a Yankee? And he goes, well, I mean, if you're from California, you're not really anything. And Robert Duvall goes, you said it.
It is true. It is. It's like it's island.
You don't have a classification.
Oh, no. But it's like I'm in the southern portion of the United States, I guess, sort of. But it's interesting, too, when you look at the map and see where the South lies, like what's considered the South. Some of it's more north than you would think, in my mind.
Well, and all those lines have gotten blurred where that crap don't matter no more.
No, that's a different time. So you've been doing this. What have you been doing? Have you kept yourself pretty busy, or is that necessary for you to stay active and busy? Are you that type of person?
Well, if you ask my wife, it is not necessarily being busy in the things she wants me to be busy in. But I have really enjoyed being at home. Last year, I traveled 127 days. And that was between events. And, you know, if I was going to be in a town, I tried to double down and do something to promote the book. There were some trips that were just full promotion of the book. A lot of my friends across the country, you know, throwing little parties to help promote it. The Fox Brothers in Atlanta, Pat Martin in Nashville. But 127 days last year.
A third of the year. Oh.
And before that, the last 3 years of my life have been over 100 days. And so this year has been 9 days.
9 days?
9 days. And that was all in February. I did South Beach Wine and Food and Charleston Wine and Food, which parlayed into the first part of March. And then COVID hit and everything started canceling. And to be honest with you, I've enjoyed being at home. And we've been very fortunate that both businesses, I mean, when COVID first happened, we saw a dip in sales, and man, my butthole puckered up because, and it wasn't like you could call anybody for advice because we're all plowing new ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody knew what to do.
No.
And I don't consider myself to be some kind of Nostradamus of the barbecue or restaurant business at all. And so it wasn't like you could like phone a friend on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and get some advice on what to do.
Like, what's going to happen next month? Yeah, you had no idea.
We were all like Ray Charles crossing the damn interstate, like tapping a cane, trying to figure out if we're about to walk in traffic or not.
Yeah, and going the wrong direction, doing the wrong things. So did you have trouble getting to go things, or did you have enough supplies?
Our sales dipped worse at Skylight than Sam Jones right to start with. And it took Skylight a little bit longer to come back up to speed than it did Skylight. Skylight to come back up to speed than Sam Jones. We had been toying with the online ordering stuff. We already had it all set up, but nothing really pushed you into doing it. And, until your knuckles get white, you don't know what you'll do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we immediately went on and launched that. That parlayed into us having an app built where everything's streamlined and simple, trying to get our drive-through efficient because our drive-through was never intended to be fast. It was more of a convenience.
I forgot that you guys have a drive-through. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so we really, and I say we, our management team, my partner Michael, they really circled the wagons and were like, all right, we got to figure this out. And I was in the restaurant probably 2 or 3 months in to the COVID, and we had 22 cars in the drive-through, which, if you're a restaurant guy with a drive-through, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You're
definitely.
But those guys, our general manager, Nick Hayes, our whole management team, I timed it, and they were doing a transaction every 43 seconds.
That's phenomenal. That's better than how like what McDonald's or Jack in the Box to those people.
But I mean, it actually takes you longer to process a to-go order than an in-house order because everything has to be packaged individually, and then put in a clamshell, put in a bag, put out a window.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than just coming down the line and going to the expo window, my hat, I take no credit for our success during the COVID as far as how streamlined things got because they did it without me. Every time I pull in that restaurant and I see the crowd that's there and know all my colleagues across the country some of them had to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them still shut down. I was on the phone with one of Pat's affiliates yesterday, and his downtown store is now only open Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So he finally opened that downtown one though, right?
Right. But I mean,
that's terrible though.
You're talking about half gas and, Nashville is like a ghost town right now.
Mm-hmm.
When he was telling me, he's like, man, I was running errands yesterday and there's nobody here because nobody's traveling to Nashville because all your bars and clubs are at like 25 or 40 people. And
all the convention there's a lot of convention business. When I talked to him maybe 3 months ago, so that makes me sad because he was hopeful.
As of yesterday, there's no conventions as of 2021.
Wow.
They've got some booked for 2022. What kind of outlook is that?
That's a terrible outlook. That's
a town that is almost dependent on tourism. Mm-hmm. It just sucks. And I guess we've been fortunate on some degree that we're not in we're I would say some sort of a destination for both restaurants that people detour their trips to come see us or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we don't experience the same trends of restaurants in big markets. You take, let's say, Labor Day, for instance. That's one of Pat's biggest weekends in normal times.
Oh, yeah.
We're almost considered, in the insurance business, we're considered a coastal community, even though we're 80 miles from the coast. And so a lot of the people that live and do business with us, boom, they're at the river or the beach.
Yeah.
during that weekend, and so our sales are actually down on that particular holiday.
And he had grown so much prior to this, and is the reason why the third restaurant is that, or second incarnation of yours, is it delayed because of COVID, or is it delayed just because of normal delays, or have you held back a bit? Have you taken a step back a bit?
Some of our delays were political, I believe, and I'm not going to go into that because it doesn't matter. And some of it was, in fact, due to COVID because of the supply chain, those type of deals. And, we're getting into a place now we're intended on opening last November. We had all our permits in December of 18.
Wow.
That's the political component to it, and which that's neither here nor there, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. They say the good Lord works in mysterious ways, and I'm glad he did. Now, based on COVID, I'm glad I didn't open last November.
For sure,
yeah. And so we'd hoped to open this November. Some things got pushed back because of the construction, supply chain, all the many variables. And so at this point, we were actually hoping for our CO inspection today, which didn't happen. It's gotten pushed off a week or so. And so at this point, I would likely say I'm not going to give you a date just because Millsap playing dart. But, we just don't know. Hopefully, if we can get our CO between now and Christmas, we'll open probably the second or third week of January.
Okay.
If all goes well.
Is it going to be a duplicate restaurant, or is it different because the market's different in Raleigh, or is it?
Well, one, I never thought there would be a Sam Jones. And so Sam Jones wasn't built to be a concept cookie cutter to go in everywhere in every city in America or whatever. And so this is, from the street view, it's going to look nothing like Sam Jones in Greenville.
Okay.
There's going to be little subtleties, detached smokehouse, things inside that's going to bring you back to Skylight and Sam Jones at home.
Okay.
But our idea based on this opportunity is to fit the community and be a part of that community and not try to, let me put a square peg in a round hole.
No, it makes sense. That's
take what we got, make it ours, and still let it be what it is type of deal. This is a garage that was built in the 50s or 60s.
Really?
And yeah. And so like one of the things that I did, and I'll show you a picture of it if I can find it because I think it's pretty cool.
You know what's funny is, Sam, when you try to, and I find myself a pretty good, I would think I'm a good researcher. Can't find a whole lot on your restaurant at all online. It's very mysterious.
So do you remember, no different than the, there's one hanging in here somewhere, but the fire tag that's on my truck, that says Ayden, North Carolina Fire Chief. In most towns, there were community license plates. And they were half the size of a regular license plate.
Oh, yeah.
That would have the community. And so on our smokehouse, I had a guy from out here in Ayden.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And so you'll see that from Lenore Street, which is basically the restaurant sits catty-cornered on the corner of West and Lenore.
Okay.
But our point is to not, we're from Ayden or we're from Greenville, we're from whatever. We're Sam Jones and we want to be Raleigh type of deal.
You want to embrace the community and part of it.
I figured that was a way to do it is, it's something old that can tie to us and tie to that community.
Mm-hmm. That's a really cool little connect. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Is it already on the building or was that like a mock-up? Is that a mock-up of it or is that the actual?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Man, let me see if I got another rendering of it. Yeah, that's on the front.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was, a month ago now. So,
are you excited about this?
Oh yeah, man.
It's gotta be. It's fun.
I wish it wasn't in this climate.
Yeah.
Just because there's been a lot of anticipation, and I don't say that arrogantly at all, but a lot of anticipation about us coming to the capital.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And we got a lot of friends there. I have, thanks to Ashley Christensen, because that's a woman that I cannot say no to. Anytime she texts or calls me, it's like, Sam, I'm doing this. And it's always not for her. It's for charity.
Mm-hmm. And
she's like, look, I'm doing this thing. You want to help me? I was like, yes, ma'am. And matter of fact, we did something I think it was last year, but it was me, her, Vivian, and Chidi Kumar from Garland.
Okay.
We were doing a small dinner that raised a bunch of money on an auction. And when they introduced us all, and Ashley was kind of the mouthpiece of helping introduce everybody, and when she introduced me, she said, every time I call this guy, he never says no. And it scares me that at some point when he calls me, it's going to be big.
That's true. But you've been pretty gracious with me too, even though we've tried this. We've tried been doing this for a little.
Well, it's one of those deals, man, where I think you ought to, to as the old saying goes, to one that's given much, much is considered in return. And so I have been very, very blessed and fortunate in my life. And when I get a chance to help people like Chris Shepard with Southern Smoke, or my buddies with Southern Soul Barbecue down in St. Simon's with Firebox, and you see the fruit of that labor. I think it was 3 years ago I did an event for Firebox, and I was leaving Firebox and going to St. Simon's. I didn't even come home. I flew from Texas straight to St. Simon's.
Okay.
And when I checked in the hotel, every event there's going to be an email thread that's like, thank you to everybody, that type of deal. And this one said, please read. And I just checked into my hotel, and I was a little bit under the weather, and I started reading this email, and I sat down in the chair in my hotel room. Next thing I know, there's water running out of my eyes. And the director of Southern Smoke is telling all of us this story of literally the day we left for everybody to come home. An emergency application had come in overnight. And it was this guy, his name was Danny, that owned a pizza and chicken wing joint and was in a bad motorcycle wreck, had underwent 4 or 5 surgeries. And I'm not completely accurate because it's been 3 years ago.
Yeah.
His mother had sent an emergency application into Southern Smoke because his insurance company apparently sucked, and he was not going to get the rehabilitation he needed. And she said, I'm willing to sell everything I have, but I just don't have time on my side.
Wow.
And Chris personally went and met with that family at the hospital and wrote a check for Southern Smoke for $100,000. And said that, we all collectively had a part in helping that man. And so Southern Smoke didn't take place this year, but last year I'm at my station, and Pat and I shared a big block pit. He was doing chicken, I was doing whole hog. And
I think I remember seeing photos from it.
Yeah, we had built this big, like 30-some foot block pit, and the director of Southern Smoke come up to me. She says, I have somebody I want you to meet. And I walked around from my station, and and he was there with his mother. He was still in a wheelchair, and his speech was very, very broken and hard to understand. And when I bent over to speak to him, I said, it's a pleasure to meet you. And when I bent over for him to talk in my ear, I started crying. And we conversed, and when we walked away from that interaction, she walked over to me and she says, I have no idea what was said between you and him, but whatever happened was special and very magical.
Oh, that's so nice.
And I said, I couldn't understand all he said because of his broken speech and slurred speech. I said, but whatever he told me was well worth every amount of energy I've ever put into Southern Smoke. I said, and what y'all do, that is the emotional return that I was looking for. And I said, as long as Southern Smoke exists, you got a friend in me. And if I can help, I will be there with bells on.
And would you have ever thought that your path would lead to all these things? Like it's a very interesting path that you've led, Sam. It really is.
Oh man, I said a year or so ago, like, I mean, you can look at, some of the people I've got to meet, people I've got to be friends with that folks look at as being celebrities or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now we're just friends. And Pat and I always say that our career brought us together, but now our friendship supersedes our business. And if we both got out of the restaurant business tomorrow, me and him's going to be best friends the rest of our life.
How nice is that?
I can say that about Billy Durney. I can say it about Brian Barksdale, who's the legal brain for Yeti Coolers. I mean, all these people that you look at, from Street View that would say, man, these folks have achieved a great status in life. And we look at each other, just like me and you look at each other, is we're all just human beings.
And that's kind of why, that's another reason why I like to do these, is that people get a chance to see that that Sam is just like you. Billy is just like you. That it's you have the same issues, the same emotional connection to things, but also too, you've achieved a lot of success in a world that people are so passionate about. Barbecue, people get like insanely passionate about. So that's the reason why.
I also say that, and I said it in my book, that you can say my name or Pat's name or Billy, any one person's name, Aaron Franklin. But the turtle didn't get on the fence post by himself.
No,
somebody helped his ass up there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm sure if you pick the brains of all those guys I just mentioned and many others, there's somebody they interacted with in life that helped them to achieve and get to where they are. And anybody that's ever lost sight of the folks that helped them and the folks that's still helping them, they're on a fast track to nowhere.
I agree. And sometimes you see it. You could tell that someone's a little bit misguided in what they're doing. It's not that they're a bad person. It's just they don't quite get what's happening. And, I just wish them luck.
In every business, the restaurant business, whatever business, there's some people that's been told they're great so much that they actually think they're great. And they ain't. If I had to bet.
That's a telling statement right now.
You pulled your britches on one leg at a time this morning, just like I did. You put that T-shirt on the same way I'd have put it on. You didn't step into it. You pulled it over your head. And so we're all the same. A matter of fact, I had that conversation with my publisher who wanted to, and not hating on her if she watches this, but she sent out an email wanting me to strike my accident story out of the book. And at the time, the book had kind of shaped up to be chronological. And it was like, this story's going to be too tragic. It's going to draw your readers away. And I was like, since this book is somewhat chronological, this is the biggest blip on my timeline. And we get on the phone. I sent an email to everybody. I said, this is not a conversation that should be had via email. It needs to be had over the phone. And we get on the phone, and I was like, my point of sharing this wasn't to pull on heartstrings, to feel sorry for me or anybody else, but just to bring us all down to reality, that I'm just another guy. And I experience the same stuff everybody else experiences, and I gave an analogy, and she said, all right, here's what I need you to do. Preface the story with what you just told me.
Well, that's a good idea.
And basically all I was saying is, we all got 12 ribs, 1 heart, and 2 lungs. And there's some things you can give up. There's some things you can't. But, from the outside looking in, when food TV became a thing, from couches all over America, people said, I like that guy. I don't like that guy.
Yeah, that's true.
I like her. I don't like her. And then you move on into the days of social media where people can get a little bit closer to you. I even have people, not recently, but people that would reach out and hate on me.
Well, why?
And they don't even know me. I had this one guy,
people are angry in
I had this one guy that told me I was a bad father.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, are you serious? I don't even know you. And so my point of wanting to share that story was to say that all these people, regardless of what achievement they've reached or have not reached, that folks look up to them on some level. That they're all just folks.
Yeah.
And we're all successful. Same things. Cancer, doesn't care what house it comes to. Any tragedy, doesn't care what house it comes to. It doesn't matter your status in life. Bad things happen to everybody.
Yes.
And those bad things is a way to convey to one in the book, the readers, but everybody else that we're all just folks. There ain't nobody better than the other person. And if you treat everybody with kindness, it'll come back to you.
Definitely. Has there been anything that you've learned during this COVID time, like this?
You don't mind if I smoke a cigarette, do you?
I don't mind. It's what do you smoke?
Marlboro.
Marlboro. Have you smoked that forever?
I smoked Marlboro since 2008.
What were you before? Was it a North Carolina company?
well, both of them are North Carolina companies. You got to figure we are in the belt of fluke
I
here.
know.
Not so much now than when I was growing up, but I mean, you had R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris, both right around Winston-Salem. And so I did smoke Winston's prior to that.
Okay. No, I used to go to, and I think I maybe mentioned, I used to go to North Carolina to High Point twice a year. My father was third generation furniture sales, and I was fourth generation. And
when you said High Point, I knew why you were going.
Of course, yeah. Yeah. Everyone outside of North Carolina wouldn't know what necessarily would. But if I'd go there and we would stay at a hotel, and there was this place called Steak Street. I don't know if it's exists anymore, but it was connected to the hotel, and I would go to the bar and they'd eat by myself, get a prime rib, or it was nice because you all get a prime rib there, and everyone would smoke at the bar. And then I was from California, and you couldn't smoke anywhere in California. It was so it felt like I was back in the 70s again.
Up until 2006.
Was it then? I was going to ask you.
You could smoke in restaurants. Mm-hmm. Literally, when my granddaddy smoked Camel cigarettes, but up until his departure of our restaurant in 2004, there were ashtrays on every table in the restaurant. And when he got out, and I was a smoker even then, but I told my dad, my uncle, I was like, maybe we should make the main dining room non-smoking, in case there's somebody that doesn't want to be around it, whatever. And they're both non-smokers, and they looked at me like, huh? Like, what's the point of that?
But it's funny too, because people used to smoke.
And now when you're traveling at airports, if you're a smoker, you're treated like you got leprosy. You got to walk like 17 miles to smoke a cigarette in between.
Into like a little glass enclosed.
Right.
Yeah, you could see all the people. So it's interesting moment because my dad was a big smoker, and he used to when he tried to quit, he used to go off because my mom didn't like the smell of cigarettes. So my dad loved smoking, and he died 11 years ago, but he always told me I love smoking. And so he would go in the backyard and wear like a beekeeper's outfit almost, and he'd smoke and blow and then wash his hands and watch because he didn't want. But they'd smoke on planes, and we used to fly on planes where there's a smoking section on which made no sense that you could. The whole plane's a smoking section.
Right. I was going to say you're in a cylinder with wings on it.
There's no way. And even in a restaurant too, when there'd be like, do you want smoking or non-smoking? That used to be the question at every restaurant when you'd walk in. Yeah, it's such a interesting. I was curious, but do you think, is there something that you've taken away from, you've had a lot more family time, and you said today you had family photos? Is that what?
Oh yeah. So it was Christmas photos.
Oh, Christmas.
And, for anybody that watches this that has a wife, you do things that typically as a man you would not do. And so whenever these photos come out, we all have plaid pajamas on. Our 3 dogs also have plaid pajamas on.
Okay.
And out of the probably 1,500 photos that got snapped, I would say all but maybe 4 of them, my 3-year-old was not happy about anything.
Wow, that's gotta be.
I mean, it was like pulling chicken teeth to get this thing done.
You finally, so maybe you have 2 or 3 photos. Is this going? Are you guys kind of threading the needle on this a little bit?
But I get home thinking we're taking family photos. My wife's like, "Look, your outfit's on the bed." I was like, "My outfit?" Because I'm not an outfit type of guy. Like, it's not like I lay my stuff out. I'm going to take whatever T-shirt's on the top, whatever pair of blue jeans is on the top, and drawer.
That's exactly me.
And all of a sudden I see these plaid pajamas with plaid slippers that the slippers said Papa Bear. And it's got Daddy right here.
Oh, no.
And I was just like, I might as well be like driving a Prius right now. No respect will be had.
But you know what?
Yeah.
It shows what kind of husband you are. Where you're seated right now, this is your garage in your house.
That's my barn.
Oh, it's your barn. Okay. Is when I first interviewed you, you sat in front of a gun safe. Is that in this? Okay.
Right on the other side of where I'm sitting. So this barn's 40 by 60.
Okay. Do you have is there an upstairs lofty thing or no?
Well, I've got a little room built into one corner, and there's storage above it, and so I've got it finished out, kind of like a little apartment.
Oh. Do you ever get thrown out there?
Oh, I mean, that's why I built it before I built my house. I built this barn when I still lived at home with my parents.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is there anything about yourself that you have learned? Have you learned something about yourself that you didn't know about yourself prior to COVID?
Well, I would say maybe not something I didn't know, but probably something I was maybe in denial of or didn't want to admit to several months ago, maybe in several months ago. But my friend Aaron Siegel with Home Team Barbecue just randomly called me one day. He was like, "Hey man, how's things going?" Because, you know, so many of us that are friends are not seeing each other like we used to on the circuit and or the trail, whatever you want to call it. But all these events we used to do, and we'd see each other maybe every couple months or something like that and high five and slap each other on the ass or whatever. We don't see each other much anymore. And me and him got chatting, and I was like, man, I'm going to tell you something I've learned is I've been at home, you know, so last year was 127 days gone, and I had to watch for a third of the year my children grow up on FaceTime. I said, what it's really shown me is that if I'm going to do something away from home, I either need a financial return or an emotional return. Meaning, I either need to get paid or I need to really believe in the cause. Mm-hmm. And there's so many causes that I'm affiliated with or I help with that I really believe in. We were talking about Southern Smoke earlier, and that guy Danny, like Chris Shepard could call me right now, and if I could click my heels to help him, bam, I am there. Yes. There's no better human being in the world than Chris Shepard. And I'm not knocking. I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm about to say. And I don't want all the food and wine festivals to go screw Sam Jones for the rest of his life. But a lot of these food festivals act like they're doing you a favor. And early on, when I first started traveling, when I grasped at every straw, because for a long time, we cooked barbecue in Ayden and nobody cared, especially after my granddaddy got out and all of a sudden the patriarch, so to speak, was not there and our business went downhill. And then when I got an opportunity to do something, I was scared to do it. One, because I didn't feel empowered by my family to do it. And so once I got that first little bit of appreciation, like you wanted it again and again and again, even if it cost you money to go be a part of something, like you felt you were being included in a bigger sphere than what you've ever been included in before. And as time's gone on, I've realized that sometimes some of those festivals are not doing you a favor. Mm-hmm. You're doing them a favor.
No, yes.
And I mean, it just sucks that, I mean, there's some festivals that, you know, you have to like bend their elbow to get them to give you an extra hotel room for your staff or to give you a hotel room the day before because it takes us 14 hours to cook our product. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand that. And I'm thinking, you called us.
Yeah. And if they don't understand that, then what
anybody
do they
that knows me, anybody that knows me knows there ain't an arrogant bone in my body. I am fully aware where I came from because I always say that, and I said this on that podcast, if you ever forget from where it was you came, you will never fully appreciate where it is you are. Mm-hmm. Or as my grandmama used to say, don't let your head get too big for your britches.
Yeah, definitely.
And
but also too, you have a realization of you have to be able to justify your time away from your family.
You know, you can talk about money, you can talk about pigs, you can talk about diesel fuel for your trucks. All that can be replaced. Time is the most valuable thing we all possess.
That's true.
Time is something we cannot replace. So Kevin, for instance, ever how long we've been on this now, I would say maybe an hour, 15 minutes. Is an hour and 15 minutes. Me or you cannot get back.
No.
Time, when it's used, is spent.
Yes, definitely.
We had to close our restaurants tomorrow and you had to find a new way to make a living, there's something we can do to make money.
Yes.
If we got to dig ditches or shovel horse manure, there's something we can do. But when you spend a moment of time, you have spent it and you will never get it back.
Definitely. But also too, I feel like I've spent this with you, and I cherish that too. It's something that.
Oh no, I'm not diminishing.
No, I'm not diminishing either. But I'm just saying it's just.
Aaron and I got in a conversation about how, you know, spend your time like you want to spend it, not how other people want you to spend it. obligated to do something that you're not getting any kind of return on.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
No, it's not fair on level. But also, too, at the beginning, you were doing almost anything because you wanted to get your name out, too. You were trying to promote your business.
Well, it was the first time I'd ever been recognized.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, somebody realizes there's a Sam Jones, not just a Pete Jones.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Well,
my granddaddy. And I was raised that, he was the mafia don. He was the patriarch,
Yes,
and everybody else was below him. And I don't operate our businesses that way anymore. Just because my name is the face piece or the mouthpiece or whatever, if I died right now, it'd be at least 24 hours before all the staff knew I died. And you know what would happen tomorrow? Both of those restaurants are open. It's bigger than me. There's people that depend on their jobs. And so it's not about being the star of the show. It's not about being the cornerstone in that building. It's not about, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. We're all spokes in a wheel. I don't care if you're the morning prep person that opens that restaurant and comes in and starts prepping, or you're the dishwasher, or you're me, the owner of the restaurant. I can't do my job if they don't do their job, and vice versa.
Well, do you foresee yourself say maybe mid next year you could travel more, or then do you see yourself maybe 50 days a year as opposed to 127?
I will never travel as much as I did last year. I can tell you that. I told my wife that, just because I'll never forget. It was 2 or 3 years ago. I was leaving to go to the airport. She was leaving to carry our child to, I want to think it was pre-K at the time. All right, my oldest daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm a sentimental guy. That accident changed my personality. It changed my outlook on life, that, death is not a respecter of age. No matter how old you are, that thing can knock on any door. I was only home for like 3 or 4 days in between trips, and I'm leaving. And as I walked into the garage, and she's putting her in her child seat in the back of the van, and I'm trying to get every kiss and hug I can get. And I started crying. And my daughter looked at me and said, "Daddy, it's okay. We're used to you not being at home.
Oh.
But we're used to you not being here." And that might as well have been Goliath stabbing his sword through my heart. I mean, it was awful. And she didn't mean anything by it.
No, of course not.
But the problem was she had grown used to looking at me like I'm looking at you on a screen instead of me laying down in the bed with her at night.
Yeah, tucking her in at night.
And that was probably the first realization that I was catering to other people's wishes or other people's desires of what they needed me to do or needed me to perform than my own family.
Yeah.
And like, do you want to be in another state? And don't get me wrong. I mean, it's nice to put in all the labor, and you see a line of people, wanting to have what you did, or shake your hand, or take your picture with you. I mean, anybody wants to be a movie star or whatever. Like, and you think those people have it made, but there's a bag of bricks that comes with everything. And being gone that much is a bag of bricks. It really is. And I love what I do for a living. I love barbecue. I love the people in barbecue. I love the people that's associated with barbecue and what barbecue has done for me and my family. But what the origin of this question, when you said, what is this year and maybe COVID, for instance, changed you and your perspective, is that I don't have to do all that anymore. And that's not me being arrogant, because as I said before, anybody that knows me knows that Sam Jones don't have an arrogant bone in his body.
But it's a good realization. I think it's important. You need to have
to do that. Like,
you have to
do things on your own terms. Cook good food, be kind to your guests, but then, all this going to and fro can be done when you want to do it instead of when other people want you to do it.
And also, too, I think when we can do that, and when we do have festivals again, I think the atmosphere will be different, because people will be excited to be together. I don't know.
I think personally it'll be bigger than ever.
I think so. I think so
Because
too.
It'll be a remiss thing. You're
Mhm.
like, God, when was the last time this happened? It's going to feel like it was a century ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll probably have a different mindset. I'll be the guy that's
It'll
calling
be,
at the bit to go do it.
maybe you could bring your family with you somehow. I don't know. I don't know if
Right.
there's
I literally obligated myself to my first event today.
really.
Yeah, and it's for next year in the fall. And that was one of the things that we talked about. I was like, I want to bring my family.
Is it in Montana? Is it in Montana?
No.
Okay, I was trying to guess. Like, you don't have to tell me.
My paws up.
Yeah, I was thinking. I'm like, oh, maybe it's paws up.
Well, I wanted to go this time, but with everything going on, I couldn't swing it. I did a virtual thing for them, and I'll end up going out there, and I want to go out there. That's the state I've never been to, and I was really looking forward to it, and I had to concede, and I feel so bad when I do that because I'm a guy that if I tell you I'm going to do something, damn it, I'm going to do it. Come hell or high water, unless something happens. And you don't believe that because every time we've tried to set up something, I'm like, all right, look, can I push it to X or Y?
Oh, but we're doing
this guy's going to think I suck.
I would never. And I also I have my life has been so topsy-turvy this last year too, dealing with a lot of the exterior things that have I get it. And I also too, I knew it would happen eventually and organically. And I appreciated this conversation maybe even more than our first, because I think it was more just cerebral, more just kind of off the cuff thinking, talking about what's on our mind, because, and especially how you're feeling about a lot of different things. And it seems that there's a lot of stuff that's kind of close to your heart right now that you talked about today.
Well, I mean, I think this year has changed a lot of people, a ton of people's perspective on everything, from just life in general to your profession to, I think it's been a reality check that, none of us are above anything.
Definitely.
I mean, as I said earlier about tragedy and cancer, COVID is no respecter of households.
It doesn't care.
It doesn't matter your position on the right side of the aisle, the left side of the aisle.
No, it doesn't.
COVID is COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a new norm for right now. And we as a society and a country have overcome bigger challenges, and we'll overcome this one.
For sure.
And all we got to do is keep our head down, do what the professionals say, and there will be light at the end of the tunnel.
It'll be weird 5 years from now thinking about, remember the time we used to wear masks remember when it'll be interesting to look at it in the rearview mirror because it's so present.
It's gonna be like mullets.
Yeah. Like mullets. Okay, I hope so. Well,
except mullets didn't help anybody. Mask help everybody.
Exactly.
Mullets only help Billy Ray Cyrus.
And also wasn't like Joe Dirt. I think wasn't there those. I don't even know if you even saw those movies, but I know that
I grew up listening and loving Southern gospel music.
Mm-hmm.
Mullets helped every Southern gospel person in the early 90s. And pinky rings. If Pat Martin ever listens to this, Pat Martin sported a pinky ring one time during Big Apple Barbecue. It was me and him, Billy, Carl Ruiz, the Fox Brothers.
Oh, wow.
We all went to Peter Luger's, and then we went to this cigar bar. Well, I ain't going to say a cigar bar. It was more like a cigar club because we're sitting in these big, nice chairs, and Carl had lined it up for us. And all of a sudden, I happened to glance over, and I see this nugget pinky ring on Pat. And I was like, what's up with the pinky ring? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I mean, it'd be all right if it was like 1992 and you were wearing a double-breasted suit with a mullet getting ready to take stage for a gospel concert. But we're in New York, and it's 2017, actually.
Did he get that from Carl?
No, it was actually his grandfather's.
Oh, okay. It feels like a Carl thing.
And then he put a guilt trip on me about it was his granddaddy's ring and yada, yada. And knowing Pat, he was probably lying.
But Pat's a great guy, and it's interesting too doing these interviews. I've gotten to know all these people that you mentioned, except for with Carl. I was actually scheduled he texted me back and said yes, finally, after all this time I bugged him, and he's like, yes, I'll interview. And then he passed like a week after he had texted me. And so it's weird when I search my phone for CA for something, it always comes up, like for a camera app, it always comes up Carl Ruiz, which is interesting.
I had talked to Carl on Thursday before he passed.
Oh, wow.
And I want to think it was on a Saturday. I was actually at a nursery picking out some plants with my wife, and Gloria, who was his great friend, texted me. And at the time, I didn't even have her number stored in my phone. And she's sitting in this very barn with Carl, and we told tall tales and had big laughs. And she texted me. She said, give me a call when you get a chance. And I just called her. I was like, hey, this is Sam. Not knowing who I was talking to. And she said, this is Gloria, Carl's friend. Are you somewhere you can sit down?
Oh.
I was like, yes, ma'am. And I literally sit down on this concrete bench, like a decorative concrete bench at this nursery. And she said, Carl stayed at my house last night, and he didn't wake up this morning.
Oh.
And I was like, come again? Like, come again? Or, like your first stages of grief, and I've experienced them all firsthand, but, grief is in stages, and the first one is denial.
For sure.
And she goes, would you mind calling Billy and Pat and letting them know? Because me, Billy, Pat, and Carl were in a group text that had been going on for years.
Oh.
And it may go silent for 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, and all of a sudden, gut punches are coming. There's going to be somebody targeted. It might be me this time, Pat next time. Carl will be talking about Pat wearing a medium T-shirt. I mean, it was always something.
Yeah.
Carl was a belly of laughs.
What a unique soul.
And then, we all flew to Miami for his funeral. And it was just it was sad. It was surreal.
It's still surreal, I think.
Matter of fact, Carl came to Ayden when I did the pit resurrection.
Oh, really?
It's in my book. Yep.
Yeah.
Billy was here. Pat was here. Elliot Moss was here. But there's a picture on my Instagram of me and Carl. I'm wearing a Leo Venters Ford hat, which is a local Ford dealership. That picture was taken at like 3 a.m.
I'll have to look for that.
About 15 feet from where I'm sitting. And I got up at 5 to go get the hogs from Skylight to put on at that old pit, which was the first time it had been fired up in over 70 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yep. Carl had hung out here 2 or 3 times, just randomly, where he was driving from north to south or south to north, and he'd shoot me a text, and I'm like, well, man, if you want to stay tonight, stay tonight. And he goes, okay.
He seems like that kind of guy. Well, like I was talking, I forget who I was talking to about someone else that was friends with him. Oh, I think Nick Solaris was really good.
Oh, yeah. He and Nick were really, really tight.
Good. And he packed a lot of life into a small amount of time. There's not many people that are able to, and not have a sense of self enough to not give a shit. Like, it was like, I'll do what I'm going to be Carl. And that's who I am.
Man, he and I, it may have been the last Big Apple barbecue, but he was at my booth. Miss Angie Mosier, who's a part of the Fatback Collective. Miss Angie's all class. She styled my book for me. And
I didn't know that. Okay.
Would not take a dime. Pissed me off, but you can't be pissed with Miss Angie because she's so nice. But Angie sings just like I do. We both grew up singing gospel music, and so. Oh,
that's where you got it. I was in the back of my mind. I was going to ask you how you
literally
got to that.
We're sitting by this Porter John at my station at Big Apple Barbecue, and it's like maybe 10 o'clock. Carl's there. He's all being Carl, so you can't be around Carl without laughing. And Angie and I were singing this song based on us singing a couple years ago at Big Apple Barbecue late at night, just sitting there under, all the, God, what do they call them? Scaffolding.
Yeah.
So all your reverb, I ain't gonna say reverb, but like, it like felt good. When you sang. That's right. And we started singing this Vince Gill song. And she was singing the lead, I was singing the harmony. Well, no, maybe she was singing the harmony. Either way, the name of the company that produced these toilets was Royal Flush. Carl starts making this video, and he goes, presented by Royal Flush, Sam and Angie. And we sang a chorus of a Vince Gill song, Nobody Answers When I Call Your Name.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I miss and it's also I miss him, but I also miss the fact that everyone can get together to enjoy those times, because those times are times. I've heard a lot of your stories over the years that you've told me that are about groups getting together, people to get together. So
it's just random how it happens, and you can't make it up.
No, you can't.
And I'll tell you a bad Carl story.
Okay.
And it was really bad. And then when we went to this particular funeral, they were like, he would have laughed at that. And so Big Apple Barbecue, if I'm not mistaken, it was Big Apple Barbecue the same year I was talking about the Royal Flush singing.
Okay.
But Ubon's Barbecue from down in Yazoo, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Opie was doing a podcast, and it was right behind, kind of in between Fox Brothers and Ubon's, and Mr. Gary Roart, who was the patriarch of Ubon.
Yeah, such
a peach of a man, if there's ever been one. I got a photo of him that hangs in my office. He was a peach of a man, and I thought a lot of. And Mr. Gary had done his bit, and Mr. Gary was a jokester too now. He was always busting chops, but he was always laughing. And so at this particular time, Mr. Gary had done his part, and it's Opie, Carl, me, Billy, and Pat.
Oh, no.
Which might as well have been like a gang initiation trash talk. I mean, it's like bam, bam, bam. Well, as we're doing our thing, Mr. Gary keeps like doing the ghosting behind us. He's like just walking back and forth. And Carl's like, what's Gary looking for? And my mind goes back to the scene on the movie Talladega Nights.
Okay.
Where they're sitting in the bar, and you got that guy that's a little bit prissy talking to one of the guys on the pit crew going, well, I mean, my grandmother's turning 88, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to get her for her birthday. And he goes, what about a casket? And so when Carl goes, I wonder what Gary's looking for, I go, probably a casket. And we all had a big laugh, whatever. Well, that was in June. In September, I'm getting ready to fly to Nashville to do this thing with Yeti. It was this film thing they were doing, and me and Billy and Pat were going to be there. And before I left, I'm standing here one day, and I believe it was Carrie Bringle that called me and told me about Mr. Gary's passing. And it clogged me up, and I immediately got on the phone with other people, and Heath and everybody with U-Bonds was like, let me know the arrangements because I will be there, whatever I got to do. And my wife and I had actually planned a semi-mini vacation around this little Yeti thing I had to do in Nashville, and she was going with me. And then that parlayed into me, Billy, Pat, and Bringle making a road trip from Nashville to Yazoo City, Mississippi. And I was like,
I remember
look,
seeing photos of that.
I said, you know, I want you to come to Nashville. I said, but I'm not coming home when you come home because I'm going to Mr. Gary's funeral.
Yeah.
The four of us struck out. We drove to Memphis. We stayed at Pat's mom and daddy's house. Got up next morning and had what I called a Sunday morning breakfast, which his mama got up and cooked a full spread with biscuits and everything.
Oh, with biscuits. Oh, love her.
We drove to Yazoo City. I put my suit on in a Wendy's or Burger King bathroom. And then those boys were making videos of me as I'm fixing my hair and spraying hairspray in the side mirror or the side window of the SUV we rode in. And Pat going, yep, Sam's just killing Forrest out here fixing his hair, spraying that aerosol. But we walked in, and his visitation was from like, I think it was 10 to 12 or 11 to 1. And we got there maybe 15 to 20 minutes before, and just a huge crowd, you know, because Mr. Gary was loved everywhere, but especially at home. And we get in line, and we ain't far from seeing the family before the funeral director cuts the line off. And we're all standing there going, And Pat waves him down in a true Pat Martin fashion. He goes, "Hey, Captain, we really need to see them people up there." And he goes, "We've cut it off. You're going to have to be seated if you're staying with service." And Pat wheels around, and he points at me, and he said, "He's from North Carolina. He's from Brooklyn, New York. Me and him from Nashville, Tennessee. And we just drove from Nashville, Tennessee to be here. We'd really like to see that family. And we really think that they'd appreciate seeing us." And this guy, for whatever reason, escorted us around the remainder of the line. And we were able to see Miss Leslie and Heath and Mr. Gary's wife and everybody. And Billy, when you watch this, I'm not hating on you. But Billy, I think that was his first Southern funeral. The guy that preached a funeral, even if you didn't know Mr. Gary, he preached a funeral like when you left, you knew Mr. Gary. And so we get in the car, and Billy's thinking, we're going to just peace out and start driving back to Nashville. And I looked at Pat. It was so hot. Oh, man, it was so hot. It had to be like 90-some degrees in Mississippi that day.
Oh, with the humidity.
And I looked at Pat because we parked on the street. We really weren't parked in a place where you get in line to go to the cemetery. And I was like, "We're going to the cemetery, right?" Pat's like, "Yeah, probably so." Billy's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, I mean, we're going to the interment." He goes, "It what?" At Brooklyn, Billy. And I was like, "I mean, we just drove from Nashville to Yazoo City, Mississippi. Yeah, we're going to the dang cemetery."
Yeah.
Billy, I really think it was like new for Billy to experience that, go to the cemetery, Southern style type of deal. And we stood there and sweated and sweated and sweated. And then I took my suit off in Ubon's barbecue. They were all having a little, gathering like you would at a church or something. And we were having to leave to go back, and we couldn't stay. But there's some things in life that you don't miss.
For sure.
And when it's somebody special, like Mr. Gary was, you don't miss it. I've flown across the country. When Pat turned 40 years old, I flew to Nashville. Me and my wife flew to Nashville to be there at his surprise party. And when somebody's your friend, there's just certain things in life you don't miss.
Yeah, you don't want to miss. Yeah, definitely.
And I've been sitting or standing in that receiving line before, and you don't forget the faces that come through.
No,
that
definitely.
pause their life to go, "Hey, I'm sorry for your loss."
It means a lot. And I didn't realize it as much when I was younger as I realize it now. I thank you so much for taking the time, and I thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'd love to see you once this is all gone.
Oh man, when the craziness is over, I ain't gonna be out there as much as I was. But
I'm gonna come out there.
I do miss Pat and I and somebody else we were talking recently that we've all enjoyed being at home, but it's like a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
You miss seeing all your friends because, we've got friends, and I say we, like all of us have friends all over the country that, we text and we talk on the phone, but it's not like hugging somebody's neck and saying, "Hey, man, I miss you so much." And I turned 40 last weekend, and my sister made this
happy birthday.
Video. Thank you, man. My sister made this video, and my business partner, she had called him and was like, "Look, reach out to some of his friends, in barbecue across the country, and Maddie Matheson to Pat to Billy, Chris Lilly." I mean, they took a moment of their life to make a video.
That's nice.
And my sister assembled this video that was 30-some minutes long. I put it on my Facebook page Sunday or Monday one.
Oh, I haven't checked it out. Okay.
When I first watched it, man, I cried like a pure dang schoolgirl. Because it was like I hit this milestone, but at the same time, it was like you see friends from right here at home, and then these people that locally folks can't figure out, like, how can you be friends with somebody that far away? It's like it's pen pals or something, but it ain't. Yeah. And but Pat's video, he was like, "I want to say happy," and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he's like, "I want to say happy birthday. You're a bastard, but you're my bastard."
Oh, that's great. I love that. I'm gonna check that out when I get off later on tonight.
Oh man, it's so funny. It ends the way she ended it was with a country song that I love. But the end of that video is me on the stage, Windy City Smokeout,
Oh,
where I sang a song a few years ago. And that's how the video ends. And Bud, I was sitting in this very building. I might as well have just saw my dog got run over. I was crying so hard.
That's great. Well, thank you, Sam. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for, persevering to make this happen, because I'm glad I got a chance to reconnect with you. And I look forward to seeing you in real life in North Carolina when COVID is gone. But enjoy your Christmas cards. I can't wait. Hopefully you'll show a photo of that online. I'd like to see that.
I'll have to.
Text it to me at least.
Man, I always know you got a bed to sleep in, the door open right here in Ayden, North Carolina.
Same thing here. Take care and have a good evening. Have a good rest of your weekend. Have a nice Christmas if I don't talk to you.
For sure, my man.
All right. Take care. Thank you, sir.
Big buddy.